So as I've said, today's session is focused on data skills, why they are important, perhaps most importantly, what we, Data Cymru, are doing to help develop skills across both your current and future workforce. And we're using current and future quite as an intended there. Before I hand over to Iawn, who is going to talk more about the programmes that we have on offer, I just wanted to quickly set the scene for today's session, really. So obviously we all know that local authorities and the wider public sector are being asked to make some very difficult decisions right now. And as such, the role of data has never been so important. As public sector organisations, we have access to huge amounts of data that can help transform the way we provide services that are fit for the evolving 21st century. Data that can help us understand more about our citizens, what their needs are and how these might change in the future. Data that will help us understand the extent to which we are meeting those needs and how we might need to improve. And data that will allow us to make efficiencies whilst understanding and mitigating the impact as much as possible on those that we support. However, if we, and in particular our wider workforce, don't have the skills or the confidence even to interact with or use that data, then it's to some extent it's just numbers. And so that is why one of Data Cymru's kind of key areas that we are focusing on heavily and have been for a couple of years is around capacity building, around training and developing skills. And we want to help you build those skills across the workforce. So one of the ways in which we're doing this is with our Data Basic Cymru training programme, which some of you may be aware of already and some of you may be here to find out more about. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So as I said, I'll hand over to Iawn shortly to introduce the programme. But before I do want to stress that today's session is not a sales pitch. We are able to facilitate the training. So the Data Basic Cymru is a training package, and we are able to come into your organisation and facilitate the delivery of that training for you. Yes, we are. However, the beauty of Data Basic Cymru is that all the training material is available online for free, so you can choose to work through it yourself, either as an individual or with a group of colleagues, for free. So instead today, what we want to focus is on why you should engage with the training programme in whatever way works best for you. Thankfully, you won't have to take my word for it. As I said, we're joined by a couple of colleagues who have gone through the course, who will talk a little bit more detail about their experiences and the benefits they've seen. So just very lastly, before I do hand over, we're really pleased that today's session is also an opportunity for us to introduce you to Data Basic Education, which is a training resource that we have developed based on Data Basic Cymru, obviously, as a training resource which is aimed at schools and pupils, our potential future workforce. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail at the end of the session and give you a bit of a look at it. But for now, that is me done, and I'm going to hand over to Iawn. Iawn, it's over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Suze. So as Suze mentioned, my name is Iawn Wade and I'm part of the Insight and Engagement team at Data Cymru, and part of my role is to facilitate the rollout of the Data Basic Cymru course. So Data Basic Cymru is a training program designed and developed by MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, to help anyone in an organisation get more confident with data. It's designed to help you gain the fundamental skills needed to understand data, which in turn allows you to use it more effectively. It's been redeveloped to include Welsh relevant data and is now available through the Welsh language. As you work through a series of fun and creative workshops, you'll learn how to recognise and understand different types of data, interrogate data, manage and analyse different types of data, understand the audience and what their data needs are, tell stories and or build arguments using data, and evaluate and create effective data visualizations. The program is aimed at beginners, also those who are new to data and those who want or need to learn more about it. However, it's also useful to those with more experience working with data who would like a refresher. In fact, after developing this program, our organization, who are reasonably data savvy, completed the course and found it extremely useful. And there are lessons that we learned during the course that we use every day. The training program itself comprises of a series of free online self-serve exercises, workshops, most of which rely solely on paper, pens and discussion, and a small number of web tools. You can choose to work through the program on your own or with a group of colleagues, or you can choose our facilitated training package where you'll be assigned a personal facilitator who will work with you to deliver the training. For further information, including flyers about how to get started, I hope Suzanne will now put the link to the website in the meeting chat, if that's okay. The course has also been completed by 16 out of 22 local authorities and a cohort from the Senedd, and I'm delighted to say we're joined by 2 colleagues who have completed the training and have agreed to share their experiences and, more importantly, the benefits they've seen as a result. And so I'd like to introduce Rachel Clegg from Carmarthenshire Council.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Iawn. Thank you very much, and for the earlier introduction, Suzanne. Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. Prynawn da, I guess, is the first thing to say. Yeah, so I'm Rachel Clegg. I'm the Data Insight Manager for Carmarthenshire County Council. I'm just really going to briefly sort of speak about our experience of the Data Basic Training Package, which we undertook in late 2022, I think, which seems like a lifetime ago now. Ian's nodding, so I'm right. And provide really a bit of context as to why, I guess, we decided to do it in the first place. So I think it's probably fair to say that, you know, as an organisation, we're on a bit of a journey at the moment in terms of our data capability and our data maturity. So from the discussions that I've had really with other councils, you know, the meetings that I've been in, the conversations that I've kind of heard, you know, I don't think we're on this journey alone, which in a lot of ways is comforting, but does, I think, speak to a larger issue around how easy it is maybe for public sector organisations to understand how data capable and data savvy we are, and moreover, perhaps, you know, how easy it is for us to become truly data capable and data driven organisations. Now, I know that's probably a bit of a meaning of life question, so probably a discussion for another day, but that is something that's occurred to us as we've been working through this sort of agenda. So, you know, we all produce, I guess, process and use data to some degree within our organisations, but I think maturity obviously relates to how well we're using it. You know, so what are we doing with that information? How hard is it working for us? You know, are we maximising it? And that's really what we've been focusing on in Carmarthenshire over the last couple of years. Now, there are numerous, I think, you know, data maturity models out there, you know, and I'm sure that some of you are familiar with them. They're all slightly different, I would say, but do tend to touch on similar themes, which all then contribute to this idea of sort of data maturity. So things like leadership, culture, tools, uses, all of those good things. And of course, they're all important, and I'm not saying in any stretch of the imagination that they're not. But Susanna's already alluded to this, you know, without a skilled and capable workforce, who I guess are primed and ready to sort of drive this agenda forward, you know, in my opinion, an organisation will struggle to become truly sort of data driven. You know, we can have all the right systems, doing the right things and have access to all the data that we want. But without the right people, you know, with the right skills in the right place at the right time, we're never really going to achieve what we want to achieve, I don't think. So in my view, and, you know, and aligning, I guess, to Carmarthenshire County Council sort of values, you know, our people are really our greatest asset. So with that in mind, you know, putting a cohort of colleagues through the data basic training was a bit of a no-brainer for us, if I'm honest. I think we had toyed perhaps with the idea of creating our own sort of in-house training package, which would have focused on the sort of, I guess, corporate data standards that we were wanting to embed across the organisation. And really that was with the aim of achieving that sort of consistency, you know, in the way that we access, analyse and present data and information. But, you know, and I probably don't need to tell you this, you know, doing something like that is pretty resource intensive. And honestly, given that Data Cymru, you know, a recognised, respected organisation with a lot of expertise in this area, obviously, you know, they were offering a package which met our needs at the time, and so we took full advantage of that, and I'm really pleased that we did. I think as well, you know, in a pressured environment, you know, resource intensive, it was really important for us to consider all of these things. It did mean that the time, I guess, we would have spent developing our own bespoke sort of package was spent doing other sort of business critical things, so it completely made sense to us in that respect, you know. So in terms of sort of wider benefits to us as an organisation, they've been numerous, I guess, is the thing to say. I've already alluded to it a little bit, but I guess it has supported us to formalise our approach, I guess, to sort of accessing, analysing and presenting data across the organisation. And I would say that for individuals, they've been able to do that with increased confidence, which is really, really important. And that's because we were guided by sort of recognised best practice, I would say, that was highlighted to us during the course. It also gave us an opportunity to get to know other data people across the organisation, which was great, you know, and share learnings and best practice. And honestly, really highlighted to me, I think, as the data insight manager, that we had an awful lot and still have an awful lot of expertise sitting within very specific and specialist pockets of the organisation, which maybe we weren't tapping into corporately. And so the process for me was as much about highlighting skills gaps as it was about highlighting our areas of strength and depth as well. And those connections, you know, that we've made during the course, you know, they've continued to serve us. What are we, a good while on now from when we did the course, and, you know, they've allowed us to share resource, I think, in what has been a challenging climate and will continue to be a challenging climate for us. So, yeah, that's been really invaluable. The course highlighted different ways of doing things to us. I think it's easy sometimes to sort of get into a routine, perhaps, and a rhythm in our work. So it was beneficial, I think, to take time and really think about that and take stock of how and, of course, why we do things the way that we do as individuals and also as teams, you know. So yeah, several of the examples I think highlighted to us really during the course in terms of data visualization and things like that have become what I would say sort of regular formats for us now. And lastly, honestly, it was good fun. So I think, you know, sometimes as data people, I think we can get bogged down in the stats. Well, I certainly do anyway. And I think in our endless sort of pursuit of the facts, you know, it can be a little bit of a fun vacuum, especially in times of sort of increasing pressure as many of us are facing, you know, at the moment. So yeah, honestly, the course was a sort of welcome reminder, if you ever needed one, that data is, you know, great. So yeah, diolch yn fawr. Thank you, I'll be quiet now.
Thanks, Rachel. That was really good. Dav is on the call. So Dav, you should be able to turn your microphone and camera on. Excellent. There we go. So follow that and I will hand over to you.
Want to firstly heartfelt apologies to Suzanne and Yayan for giving them a heart attack for turning up. I was only 11 minutes late. That's good for me. That's good for me. I'll introduce myself though, I guess. I've got a little bit of a presentation. I love, anybody who knows me knows I love PowerPoint. So I do everything in PowerPoint, colors and stuff and moving things. You know, we're all basically, you know, common man at heart. So we love colors and animations. But a little bit about me though. I'm an analyst at the Welsh Parliament, at the Senedd. I think it's crucial to sort of just talk a little bit about the difference in the fact that all organizations should prioritize data collection, cleaning, analyzing, sharing as a baseline. but some organizations require it as a priority and others just need it as a fundamental. And I think that the Senedd is one of those that is a fundamental skill to have rather than a priority to have. The reason is because our use of data, it's very different to things like governments and local authorities, because you've got a lot of executive power. You need that data set to be really accurate and really clean to genuinely help your citizens' lives. Now, I don't mean that the Senedd doesn't help citizens' lives. We do it in very, very different ways. We're more, what's the word? We're scrutinizing. So we look at data and we understand it a little bit more. That's not to say that we don't have large-scale data sets on our systems. We do, we have lots, but they're not critical to things like education and health in the same way that local authorities and governments use them. We're more like, what are you doing over there? Hey, stop doing that sort of stuff. That's what we do. So from that perspective, it's more, our culture is a little bit different. So it's more about, it's more about understanding the baseline skills in order to get to that point where we can analyze things in that sort of sphere. I think that makes sense. So if anybody has any questions about that, what I just said, just drop them in the chat, and I'll expand on it, because it's not something that a lot of people will think about, because I'm in a specific scenario. Like the Senedd itself doesn't necessarily prioritize data leadership, but we do prioritize data. So there's weird things like that happening that are very different to some of your perspectives. But feel free to send me a message or anything if you want to chat that through. But following on from that basic data culture was absolutely key for us. And there's only one partner that I felt that could really help us out, and that was Data Cymru. There were lots of others, but obviously the commonalities in place there was really, really sort of central to the thinking on how we're going to do this. So where is my PowerPoint? I'm going to try sharing in Teams first, and then if that doesn't work, I'm in there. I'll just share normally then, shall I? Here we go. I know this can be a little bit weird. Push presentation. So I should be going live, and you should see an awful yellow color. Oh, it's already gone wrong though.
We can see it.
Yeah, if you can ignore whatever's happening to the this text here, just ignore it, because it's basically saying Senedd data strat, and then this thing underneath. Oh, this is awful. I apologize to everyone. What it says underneath is our strategy is getting off the bottom rung. Hopefully the rest of the slides haven't moved the text around against my will. But anyway, that's our bottom line. It's not a critical position. It's just a reality position of what the Senedd is at a data maturity concept, because Rachel spoke really well about it. That data maturity element is really, really, really important. And that's what our focus is. It's plainly getting through the rungs of data maturity, data knowledge, data understanding. So that's our position. And so the simplest way to do that was to find a partner that could help us in our pursuit of that. So I got a little snazzy. Oh, beautiful. Did everybody enjoy that? I did. So the idea behind it is to seed ideas and good practice across the organization. What that means is finding people that want to work better with data in different parts of the org, and then challenge them to be champions of data within their groups. We don't have a data leadership in the way that most people would understand it, and hopefully the leadership isn't watching this and going, hey, how dare you. We prioritize different skills. Our groups are based on legislative concepts. Our groups are based on scrutinizing, and as I said, and then there are other groups that are based on just understanding our own organization a little bit better. So that data leadership bit is just not there. It's not going to be there because, as I mentioned, that criticalness of the data that we carry is not necessarily as high as what a local authority might have. But that's the idea. And then so what we did was we wanted to address the uneven knowledge within the groups, because a lot of the groups have different needs. I don't need to describe this to anyone. So we bring in people across the org, and then more important than this then was finding those with enthusiasm, because what I did, I spoke with Suzanne and Iain quite a bit about what the course did, and then I thought about it in the sense of make this entirely open to the org and then wait for the interest to come in, and that's exactly what happened, because lots of people are interested in getting their data skills up. So I'm afraid I missed possibly the start of Rachel's thing. And for me, this isn't about messing about, with analytics, and it wasn't about, understanding SQL or whatever language that you want to use. It's about actually understanding that storytelling point. Like, how do you make a number say something that's meaningful? We've heard this a million times, and I'm not going to solve it here. I'm certainly not going to solve it in my lifetime, because the reasoning is behind it is that people have to be enthusiastic to want to do that in the first place. So that enthusiasm was key for me, and we brought in lots of different bits of the org. In fact, I think we touched every part of the org, maybe apart from legal, but I think they're exempt, they're okay. So I thought I'd go then with some of the feedback from the people that did join the course, because sadly for me, like, there were too many people and I couldn't go on it. So I can't really actually talk about it that much, but I spoke a lot with everybody that did go, and they gave me a lovely feedback from the course. And this is one of the elements here. So somebody said, I really liked that it was so full of different exercises and practical tasks, and it's best to learn hands-on. Now that's really, really important, because getting that actual connection with the work is really important. I'm going to say important a few more times. Learning is a really difficult thing to do. We go to courses all the time, right? All of us. We go to all sorts of things, and then, like, genuinely, how much of it stays with you? You usually keep maybe one bit. Maybe you think, oh gosh, I'm gonna, and then you slide that into everything that you do. So I think that really hands-on element, because I'm not sure if anybody's described this, but when I turned up to one of the sessions, there was like little balls of like wool and like knitting needles and a tower made of balsa, and I was like, what are they going to do today? What's this got to do with data? But it worked really well, because they associated something in the real world with nebulous concepts. Now, there's learning champions all around, and they'll tell you how powerful a concept that is. So I thought that was really cool, and then everybody loved that as well. Oh, by the way, I have gone slightly off script on this, Suzanne and and I am going to bring in like things that people that thought could have been a little bit better for them, but that it sort of talks to like the difficulty of doing data training. And then somebody else said the activities made it accessible for all levels, and then it made them think about the ways they can use data that they hadn't previously thought. Now, that's absolutely golden. For me, as an analyst and as basically the data champion, well, self-crowned data champion within the Welsh Parliament, that is the sentence that I want to hear, is that somebody thinking about those simple processes that they can attach their actual genuine work to in a working day. Because all we're trying to do, this is what I say to everyone, my job is basically to make everybody's working day that little bit easier. Just shave off 5 minutes here and there using really good data practices and good data storytelling stuff. I'm gonna have a little bit of my tea. So when I saw that sentence, I was like, absolutely hit gold on that one. And then somebody said, and this is key as well, but this talks a little bit about our maybe configuration of the organization more than anything, but it's a great introduction to data, and it was, we need more courses on data. There's a double exclamation marks there. I don't know if I should have shouted that or not, but and then this is the line: we use data all the time, but we don't know where to start. Now, connecting those two, you give somebody a number, and then you tell somebody how to tell the importance of that number. That's what we're all about, right? That's, if you boil it down, that's what we do in a way. Ignore qualitative stuff for now. So seeing that, and it's attached, and it came from the data company stuff, was absolutely perfect. Again, exactly what I was looking for. Somebody to attach really good storytelling practices across the data that they already have. So I didn't actually want to push on into hard crunching stuff, but this is a problem with an org concept, and I was struggling with this in how to tell the data basics training story to the people in the organization, what to expect, You're not going to be able to do hard statistics after this course. You're not going to be able to write a SQL query review. But people were looking for this, and they were looking for actual number crunching. People were looking for analyze complex, intersecting data sets. I was like, you'll have to go and do a master's for that. You're not going to do it in 8 hours, I'm sorry. And then somebody was asking for, like, again, practical exercises with Excel and stuff like this, nuts and bolts, and how you actually do it would have been good. So they need to go off and think about their education concepts. Because what we were doing on the data basics was attaching fundamentals. If you want to learn Excel, you should, but crumbs, you know what I mean, that you're not going to do that in 8 hours. And you're certainly not going to do it with the fundamental learning structure that Orchard and Data Cymru put together. So that's just one thing to say. If you're going to go and say, hey org, we're going to do this, it's not about that. Absolutely make clear that it's not about that. It's about the more fundamental skills. And anyways, this is the thing. I chuckled about this one, and I hope the person who wrote it isn't feeling bad. But somebody wanted to know how to manage large amounts of data. What's large mean? I don't know. And then maybe a bit of technical skills and tips and tricks for manipulating it into what and how I need it to best demonstrate what I need it to show. So it's a slightly convoluted sentence, but that last bit, absolutely perfect. Using stuff and then telling a story on it, but then using large amounts of data. Again, you know, we're not Amazon, we're not AWS. We ain't going to be doing billions and billions of rows of stuff. So again, for me, it was lovely to see everybody responding to the course in the way that it's intended, which is that storytelling element and really fundamental concepts of how to display the information in a meaningful way. Not about enormous amounts of data, not about creating convoluted calculations on top of it. And I think I shared these things with you, but if I haven't, I apologize. I will forward them. And I think that was a part for me, really, to describe what we kind of did, but people see what they want to see, right, at the same time. My takeaway, though, I'm going to stop sharing. I think I've stopped. Did everybody like the yellow, by the way?
It's very nice. You are still sharing, though.
Did I press stop sharing the other button?
There we go.
Put a thumbs up in the chat if you like the yellow and the black and the push stuff. And if you want me to build you some things, it'll cost you some money, but I'll do it. Any questions on that? Absolutely, let me know as well. But I just wanted to say then, as a final bit, because Rachel covered all, like, I'm not going to be able to repeat what Rachel said. She's a professional. What we wanted to do was get off that bottom rung, that wonderful sentence that was at the beginning of that slide that PowerPoint ruined, just nudging up, but also starting to attach some of those concepts around data, because everybody thinks that it's like numbers and Excel. It's way more complex than that. And I always say to people, if you want to know data, you want to think about the model and the language and the semantics and the sharing element. Other people will do the numbers for you. Don't worry about it. Engineering is for other people. We want to talk about how to use it, how to tell the story on it. And on that, I will be quiet because I think I saw Rachel popping up for a second.
I think she did. I think it was just to...
Only to shake my head, really. But yeah. Diolch, Daf.
Oh, diolch, Rachel.
Oh, that was excellent. Thank you very much, both of you. They were really, really good presentations, excellent presentations, and no problem with bringing in the what shall I say, the gaps that people have said, because I don't see them as gaps. I think actually what my takeaway from that is that I'm really, really pleased that people have now gone, oh, I want to know more, and now I need this, or because that is the kind of information that we can then use and go, right, this is how we can build our capacity building, our training course kind of programs further. So outside of Database at Cymru Education, we do provide other training courses. We're always kind of wanting to make sure that the areas which we tackle are of value, and so that kind of feedback is excellent, and there's different ways we can tackle it.
Just to add as well, and I will work on this for you, but lots of people wanted to do that again within their groups as a whole.
Yes.
So the people that were there wanted to run it again and share it more with their partners and their stakeholders and their teams and their groups. So a bunch of people said that.
Really good.
Plainly, we got like things to prioritize for their financial concepts. But that's how strong people felt about it. Lots of people said they want to do that again.
No, excellent. And as Iain said, a couple of years ago now, I think it was even pre-COVID, we as an organisation went through the Data Basic Cymru training as one of the first organisations to do it. And as you say, as Iain said, we are a reasonably data savvy organisation, we'd like to think. But again, even going through it, it's what Rachel's touched on, it's what you've touched on, Dan, the not camaraderie so much, but the kind of working with your peers, working with your colleagues through some of these. One of the takeaways for me was that it was really interesting as somebody who is probably going to be putting data in front of people and doing visualizations and insights and all that kind of thing, is reminding yourself how other people interact with data, because I think Rachel touched on something similar. You get into a bit of a mindset where you go, oh, this is how we present data. This is excellent. Everybody will understand this. Of course, how could anybody not understand what I'm telling them with this data? And yet actually when you're with other people and you see them reacting to data and just looking at it in different ways and getting different things from it, it makes you take that step back and go, oh, I need to think about my audience a little bit more and just not assume that everybody thinks like me. And so just the kind of the fundamental skills that we're trying to teach as part of the course, it's the other learning that you get as well. I think just as as an enthusiastic learner, when we went through it, I think that was one of the things that we found really, really valuable. Brilliant, excellent presentations. Thank you both so much. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give a bit of an intro to data basic education, as I've said, and then what I forgot to mention at the start is if we have time, and that's a very big if we have time, then what we plan to do is walk you all through one of the workshops that we would cover. We won't do it as a live workshop. We won't go through what the attendees on the course would go through, because that would take too much time, but we'll talk a bit more about it in a, we would do this, we would get these results, and that is what you would learn through doing so. So in order to allow us to have enough time, let me just quickly introduce you to Data Basic Cymru education. So as I said at the beginning, today is about your current and your future workforce. And so data basic education is really where we're starting to think about the future workforce. So we all know that using data is no longer a specialist only skill set. We know that every role, every sector, every decision we make is or should be data driven. And so we believe that understanding how to recognise, interrogate, tell stories with data, all the things we've talked about today, is an essential skill for our young people as they come up through the education system and into the world of work. Because it's going to sound very grandiose in some way, but being data literate really, really enables people to be able to engage, question, challenge, and then thrive in their personal life as much as within their future professional lives. And that's where the focus on digital literacy and data skills in the new curriculum for Wales kind of comes from as well. So it's a really, really fantastic thing to see that all our young people are going to be really encouraged to be looking at digital and data skills. It's something we are really, really in support of. With that in mind, we were really, really pleased to be approached by the Central South Consortium, so Central South Education Consortium, to work with them on their Data in Our World project, which was a project aimed at engaging pupils, young people in data, encouraging them to kind of look at roles and jobs that would involve data, and to encourage them to kind of, maybe follow those paths. So we did some work with them on that. I'm not going to labour it too much, but if you were to go on there, our Data in Our World, a couple of colleagues from across the organisation actually produced some videos whereby we talked about, so we had our data scientist Rob talk about what it means to be a data scientist, the kind of path that he took to get to being a data scientist, so that if somebody was interested in being a scientist, they'd have someone who they've heard from that they know how to go about it. And then myself and our COO Richard talked about just the importance of data and how kind of fundamental it is, and why people should be kind of really engaging with the learning around data and digital skills. I'm certainly not bringing those up on the screen today, because no one particularly likes seeing themselves on the screen, but those exist. But through our discussions with the Central South Consortium, we also realised that there was a real opportunity for us to produce a resource that could be employed in schools, that could be by teachers or pupils themselves, for learning about basic data skills. So, as I've suggested, we took our Data Basic Cymru programme and redesigned it, redeveloped it so that it will be used as a resource to help schools and pupils across the whole of Wales, not just within that one consortium area, across the whole of Wales, develop their data and information literacy skills. So the result of the work is Data Basic Education, which I will just throw up onto the screen very quickly. So you should all be able to see the Data Basic Education screen now. As you see, it's very, very similar for those of you who have gone onto the Data Basic Cymru website already. It's very, very similar. We've changed the colours a little bit. It includes all the same activities and all the tools, but we have worked on the language so that it is age appropriate, and some of the data sets are being looked at so that there is no swearing. It's hard to believe that there's as much swearing in some of these tools as there was when we did a bit of a Q&A on it. So, for instance, our WTF CSV has now been changed to Ask CSV for young minds. And the other thing is that we have slightly redesigned it to enable educators and facilitators to find the best activity for their pupils or subject. So, for instance, we've produced this activity guide, which is just an overview, one sentence per activity that tells people what that activity is aimed at learning. So they can look through that and say, oh, that's what I'm trying to do today. That's the exercise that I need to call on. The key thing about this is that it is not a maths or an IT focused resource at all. It is cross-curriculum, cross-subject. They are exercises that can be applied to any subject whatsoever, because as with the curriculum for Wales, these skills are to be mainstream. This is not just something that you learn in maths or computer science. And educators are invited really to bring their specialist knowledge of their subject to the activity so that they can choose what's most appropriate. So for those who are interested, for those who work in education or around this space, Data Basic Education is currently being reviewed for inclusion in Hub, and so will then be available to all pupils and all teachers. And in the meantime, we are sharing it with the schools via the consortium. So we're engaging with the consortiums and doing it that way. Yeah, it's just really to say that it is there, and hopefully, you know, if you've got young people at home, it might be something that you want to kind of point them towards. It is there. It is. Exactly. So everything that we talked about today in terms of what Data Basic Cymru offers, Data Basic Education does the same thing. So again, as I've said before, if you've got questions on anything you see today, please add them into the chat bar, and we will absolutely take those at the end. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing, and we have got time. So just before we close for questions, as suggested, Iawn is going to, in the best way that we can without engaging you all and having kind of live dynamic workshops, just walk you through the type of activity that we would do with our attendees on the courses, or that you might do on your own, you know, in front of the computer, just so you can get a flavour for what is on offer. Iawn, over to you.
Thanks, Suze. Yep, so we're going to run through one of the modules we do during the course. Can everyone see my screen? I hope. Yep, brilliant. Thank you. Yep. So this is the paper spreadsheet. Although we are doing the online version, it's normally done with paper and pens. We normally ask participants to fill in a paper spreadsheet with the following types of information. So we have first name, hometown, colour of your top, number of siblings, day and month of birth, and describe any experience you have with data. So this is the first module we do. It may end up looking something like this, and this exercise allows us to explore the basics of what data is, how we categorize it, and how we talk about it. So I think the eagle-eyed viewers here can spot some of the fictional names I've put in. You may recognize them, as this is just an example for this webinar. So people often think of data just as numbers, but this shows there are other kinds of data, such as temporal data for the day and month of birth, geographic data for hometown, and qualitative data for describe any experience you have with data, which is data with words. So for instance, so this introduces us to some of the challenges of collecting data and how to avoid or mitigate these challenges. If we look at the first name column, it's not clear if we're asking for your first name or the name you're known by or a nickname. Also, your hometown, is this where you live or where you were born or brought up? Lastly, we have the describe any experience with data column. We can see the challenges of asking for a free text response, as we're unable to control what people may input, which may make it more difficult to analyze. It also highlights the influence of the first response, as if the first response is visible to respondents, people may be unsure what to answer here and will be influenced by what's already there. So as you can see, a few people have responded with the same response as the first response. Participants are also invited to think about how they would present the data from each column. So for example, with a sentence or a number or a chart. So for the color of your top chart, perhaps a pie chart may be best with each slice represented by a different color. The number of siblings chart, you could calculate the average, so either the mean or the mode, or display these findings using a bar chart. And lastly, participants are asked to look at the data set as a whole and to consider whether it helps paint a picture of who is in this imaginary group and what is missing that might help this data set. So there's definitely a lot to think about. And so this sort of activity wants to push the participants' curiosity buttons and raise confidence levels rather than using a one-size-fits-all approach. And this exercise is a perfect introduction before we delve deeper into data and learn how to tell effective data stories. So we do have a few key takeaway messages we want to share with you for this module. So we believe that guidance in answering questions is key. Don't underestimate the influence of the first response, first person to complete a survey if the answers are visible to other respondents. Data often needs to be cleaned and standardized. It needs to be in a consistent format, ideally with no missing values. And finally, the way data is collected and used can also raise questions of privacy, consent, and ethics, which must be taken into account when analyzing and presenting data. So I'll stop sharing.
Very quick run through of the type of thing. Obviously, I think for all of one of the things I think Iawn did mention it, but the workshops there, I think the course entails about 9, maybe 12, between 9 and 12 workshops anyway. But each of them only lasts between, say, 20 minutes and an hour. The longest of these kind of lessons is an hour. This one is a very short one, but obviously not that short. This is very much a quick run through. But as Iawn said, that's just about the introduction to data, getting people to think about what data is, what the different types of data might be. And as he said, some of the challenges that you might get when you're looking at data sets. As Dav said in the chat column, that the date column was a bit of gave him the heebie-jeebies, and it is. And as Iawn said, you know, it really highlights that if you are working with big data sets, the cleansing, the consistency is really, really important. And this is just a really quick way of kind of showing people how easy it is to not have that kind of stuff. And this is the kind of data set I would imagine that a lot of people are going to be coming across through their daily work when they're collecting information about individuals. And it's only when you put it together and look and go, oh, heck, I couldn't do much with that now because actually there's no consistency. So I think it really gets to the heart of some of the fundamental learnings that we try and take away from it. So thank you very much for that, Iawn. That draws to close today our what we wanted to say, what we were going to present, what we hope you've enjoyed and learned from. If there are any questions, as we say, we've got a little bit of time. If there are any questions, then please do put them in the chat. If you're interested to learn more about Data Basic Cymru yourself, then the link is in the chat. And as I said at the beginning, we do offer facilitated courses. So if you want to talk to us about that, then that's absolutely fine as well. And Iawn's details are on our website. But as I say, the key thing is that this information is all available online for free. So go and have a look with it, go and have a look at it and see what you want to do. It is all very much about trying to build those fundamental data skills so that you, as Dava said, really key organisations in kind of supporting and developing and you know, really helping the communities. Hopefully these data skills will help. So thank you very much. We'll just give it a few minutes to see if any questions come through. very difficult. I find it very difficult to stay quiet for very long, so I won't. So suffice to say, if you do have any questions, then drop them into the chat after we finish, or like Iain's put his details there, please feel free to drop us a line with any questions you might have around what we've talked about today, or any of our other training courses. And all that remains for me to do then is to thank Iain very much for coming along and talking about Data Basic Cymru, and of course to thank Rachel and Dav for giving us their time today and being so kind in helping to feedback and hopefully talk to you about why it is that you might want to get involved with Data Basic. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks all. Diolch yn fawr.